how to get more business and close more deals. This one today goes out to anybody in the escrow and title world that has responsibility over building business and making sales. This could be the elite escrow officer. I know in my area, most escrow officers handle a lot of their own sales. It could also go out to dedicated sales reps. We have a good solid sales team that focuses 24/7 on title sales. So I spend a lot of my time helping to support all those folks with their activities in trying to build their book of business. And the secret is you got to focus on your activities, not your results. There's an old Stoic philosophy out there called the dichotomy of control, and many of you will have heard of this before. It has to do with recognizing the things that are in your control and the things that are out of your control, being able to focus your actions and your activities on those things that are within your control, and letting all the items that are out of your control be left up to Providence. Trusting that it's all going to work out. You do your part and what you can do, and it may not work perfectly in terms of return. There's a daily practice that I would recommend along the lines of this philosophy. And again, those of you who are familiar with this will have seen this before. You draw two circles on a paper. Inside the one circle, you list out the items that you're going to do that day that are within your control. So start when you get up in the morning, try this practice. It's a 10-minute exercise. Those of you who are familiar with the dichotomy of control have seen this before. You draw two circles, one inside of the other. Inside the smaller circle, list out the items. So you think about your day and what you want to accomplish that day. Write down all of the items that you're going to do that day that are within your control that will drive toward the results that you're after. Inside the outer circle, you'll write down all of the things that you're hoping to happen that day based on your activities that are outside of your control. And then you focus 100% of your effort and time and attention to the things inside the inner circle, and let the outer circle be whatever it's going to be. But if your activities are good and your effort is pure, you're going to see the results that you're looking for. Maybe not directly, immediately that day, but over time, as you build, the end result is going to be phenomenal. So how do we do this? In my operation, we spend a lot of time focusing on 4 measurables. 2 of them are lead measures, 2 of them are lag measures. But regardless of what kind of measure it is, we focus our effort and time on figuring out what aspect of those 4 measurables are within our control, and let's go do those items. So here you go. We measure proactive reach outs, we measure one-on-ones, we measure new orders received, and we measure closed orders. That's it. Everything else that you want to build out in terms of your sales process is probably going to fall in one of those 4 buckets as an appendage. But those 4 items we feel are where the rubber really meets the road when it comes to sales. So the proactive reach out. Every one of my reps does this at a different rate. Some have way more than others. It doesn't really matter to me because this whole process is very self-policing. We use a tool within our team that helps us track and measure these 4 items so that we can see the story that's going to tell us about each individual sales rep, where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are. Same thing applies to escrow officers. So if you're an elite escrow officer doing all your own sales, all of this stuff applies to you as well. We use a tool that we developed here within the operation that helps us watch and track these things. So I can see how many proactive reach outs that I did. We track it daily. I can see how many all the reps did. I can see how many one-on-ones I conducted. So by definition, a proactive reach out for us, very broad definition, but it requires that I identified a target and I made contact with that target. This is not somebody that I just bumped up against or that I ran into in the grocery store, or that I saw in passing in a restaurant walking out of a lunch with another client. This is somebody that I identified as a target, as a prospect, and I reached out to them in some manner. Could be a phone call, could be a text, could be an email, could be that I invited them to a CE class, whatever the case may be. You'll see that as I walk through this process, this is your traditional sales funnel. We start wide at the top and we funnel down trying to find those people that are going to be interested in doing business with us, that we can create that long-term relationship with. So the proactive reach out is something that's within our control. I have the ability to reach out to whoever I want to, right? I just have to put in the work to identify those targets, make my list, and then reach out. The definition of a one-on-one for us is just that. It's an opportunity that I've been able to obtain with a prospect or a target where they've accepted an invitation to sit down with me one-on-one. This is where you make your money in sales. This is the holy grail of sales. I've got the full undivided attention of my target, and I'm going to deliver my message in hopes that I can strike up a business relationship with this individual. and get business. New order is just that. They send me over a deal. Closed order is just that. I did a closing. Ultimately, that's the master metric that everybody watches, that every manager and owner watches, is the revenue, because that's what makes the business work. But revenue, the amount of revenue we receive in a month, is actually not within our control as a sales rep. We don't determine the size of the deal that our customer is willing to give us. Therefore, we don't determine the size of the premium that it's going to command. We don't get to determine that. All we can do is focus on the activities leading up to that point where it will pay off in terms of new orders and closed deals. So some examples of things that are within your control. How many proactive reach outs you're going to make in a day, how you're going to do that, how many invitations you're going to make to try to lock down some one-on-ones that day, how you're going to do that, how you plan to prepare if you have a one-on-one scheduled, how you prepare for that meeting. What is it based on your homework? What is it that makes this target tick? What are you going to bring to the table that's going to make them want to talk to you again and really truly consider sending you business? You got to prepare for that. How are you going to follow up with that customer? Your process or your system for follow-up is totally within your control. And then being prepared to handle objections. You may not know what objections are going to be raised within that meeting, but if you spend time practicing handling objections and having prepared responses for the most common objections that you hear, that's something you can bring to the table. You will then control that part of the conversation. That's within your power to do. Things that are out of your control that you got to just leave up to Providence and trust that it's all going to work out in the end, because it does. Some of these things include whether or not a prospect takes your call or responds to your email or text, whether or not a prospect is willing to accept your invitation for a one-on-one, whether that be a lunch appointment, whatever it is that you do where you feel like you're best in the one-on-one environment. Another one, even when you get time with a customer, they may make some representations to you, some promises to you that they're going to send you their next deal that they get, and they don't do it. It happens to the best of us. That's out of your control. You have to just keep trying. Market conditions are totally out of our control. We as escrow officers and sales reps have to be willing to just adjust and adapt to whatever the market conditions are. The market conditions are the way they are based on factors that are completely outside of our control. So how are we going to adapt to that and continue running our business? So within my team, we spend a lot of time tracking, logging, analyzing, and training within that simple 4-step process. In other words, if I have a sales rep that's really good at reaching out proactively, doesn't really have any inhibitions there, very comfortable with strangers, very comfortable making new contacts, they may report a lot of proactive reach outs every single week. But it's possible that that rep is not very good at converting those proactive reach outs into sit-down one-on-ones. And at the end of the day, like I said before, that's where you make your money, right? That's where you shine as the sales rep. That's the holy grail of sales, is that one-on-one appointment. That shows you as a rep and me as your manager, that's an area that we can provide some support to, right? Rather than just throwing a random training out to the team that hopefully people get something from, I can hone in surgically with you on that aspect of your sales cycle and help provide some support and some training on what you might consider doing differently in your proactive reach outs that would lead to more one-on-ones. Next step would be one-on-ones to new orders, right? Maybe I've got a rep that's really good at scheduling one-on-ones, got a good approach. However they're doing it, they're really talented at scheduling one-on-ones with prospects, but they don't really walk away with that many new orders in hand. Well, with that rep, I'm going to focus on something a little different than on the prior example. Maybe they're really good at the reach outs and the one-on-ones, but whatever is happening in those one-on-ones, they're not walking away with business. So that shows me as the rep, if I'm that rep, well, I got a weakness here. Let me spend some time analyzing what I'm doing in those one-on-ones and maybe try something different. And then if I step into my shoes, me as the sales manager, what can I do to help support that rep in that particular step in their sales cycle? I don't need to really worry about the rest of it. Let's hone in on that one aspect that they're struggling with right now. My hat as the ops manager, I can do the same thing with the escrow people. If I see an escrow officer that's struggling in one of those aspects, then that's where I provide the support, right? If we continue down the chain, we've got a customer that's sending us orders now, but they're not really closing. Well, that suggests that they might not be a really great quality customer. Maybe they're opening deals that never close. Maybe they're opening duplicate orders with us and they're keeping 2 or 3 title companies happy, not actually closing them with you. That's going to show you what you need to know about that customer so you can move on to somebody that's going to be a little bit more beneficial and profitable to your book of business. So we spend a lot of time in our operation measuring those activities, identifying our strengths within focusing those activities and then providing support and training to the areas where we might see some deficiencies in those activities. It's awesome. It works really well. Me as a rep, if I'm out there working the environment still, and I have a tool like that available to me that can show me, that can expose to me where I'm really good and where I might be weak, that helps me really open up the constraints that I might have in my sales cycle. Ultimately for you, that's a little bit about our process that we run, but it's not the only way to do it. Your cycle, your system might be completely different. You might want to focus on completely different activities than what I've shared with you today. That's totally fine. Doesn't really matter as long as those activities have a high probability of return toward result. So whatever those are, figure out your system and your strategy, start measuring them, and be sure you're going in on activities that have a high probability for return on your investment that lead toward the ultimate end result of closings and revenue. Focus on the activity, let the results be left up to Providence, and they will return the ultimate result that you're looking for. The ultimate result to this approach is that you will feel focus and a sense of fulfillment in areas in which you're able to actually move the needle each day. And you'll feel peace of mind in those areas for which you don't have the control of moving the needle, but that needle is going to end up moving itself based on the activities that you've put into your process and your system that will end up pushing that needle. So my advice to you, take this approach every single day. Sales is a high octane, high commitment level environment. It's something that we can't really afford to ever let our foot off the gas pedal because of the level of competitiveness that we feel and see in our industry. There's always alternatives out there for our customers to go try out. So spend your time strategizing, planning, contemplating each morning. What activities are you going to spend your time on today? How many do you want to accomplish? Pick your measurables and set yourself a goal. And I'm talking the measurables that you have control over. Set yourself a daily goal of how many of those you want to accomplish each day. And then let the results come in. And if the results are off the mark, then start analyzing that process and those activities that you've chosen to spend your time on. Ask yourself the hard question, have I chosen the right activities? Are these activities driving toward the result that I'm after? And if not, have the courage to change them. If so, and you just don't have a really strong conversion rate throughout the process, then have the humility to ask for help and seek support and training to help bolster those areas that you might see a deficiency in. And I promise you that over time, you'll start to see all those results that you're aiming for in your business. At that point, it's fine tuning and you can start raising the scales as high as you want to. Build the system, build the process, focus your time on activities that you control that drive toward high probability of return on investment that lead to the results you're after. That's how you win.